And with that, we're going to open it up for questions in a minute.
Thank you, Deb, for your wonderful presentation. I learned a lot today. So any question that you may have, this is the moment.
Okay, and I'm going to stop screen sharing, and then we'll be able to see you too. If you want to turn your video back on, you could. And it looks like there's 99 plus things in the chat. Okay. I see. Okay, I'm going to just read some of these. I wrote salad burnette for the one that tastes like cucumber. Absolutely right. Yes, this is being recorded. I'm getting some nice thanks. And I'm sharing the slides. Yes, I could share the slides. I'm going to give out my email. Okay, I'll put it right here. I'll put my email in the chat.
And Ariana has some question.
And if you want to write to me, if you're a I have a little concern about sharing slides too broadly, but for someone who's a science teacher, yes.
Could I see the email again, please?
It's on the chat.
Not on chat. Okay.
It's on the chat to everyone. DebEllisNJ@gmail. Thank you for the thank yous. Ariana's question. Do you want to unmute yourself, Ariana? I'm going to just read a comment someone wrote so everyone can see this. This is wonderful. Sage. I cut back partially throughout the winter and it has flowered beautifully. Makes amazing buttered pasta. What a nice idea. Just sage and buttered pasta. Violet is everywhere. How to contain. A weed I cannot control. Do I want it to flower? Okay, well, thank you for bringing up the problem with violet. The violet is like mint in that way. That's why I wanted to give people, I wanted to kind of give a plug for violet, that you can eat it and that it really helps sustain the earth. But it is like a weed, to be frank. Of course, a weed is just something we don't like. So you can contain it in one area if you weed around the area. That's what I do. The other thing is that it helps the earth to spread them because the fritillary butterflies are actually really bad mothers and they lay their eggs not on the violets but a little farther away. So the more you have violets spread out in your lawn or in your garden, the more fritillary butterflies there will be. But I don't want to sugarcoat the idea that, you know, if you plant violets, you could get a lot. So it's something to be aware of.
That was my question. I had trouble with the texting. The flowering wasn't about the violets. The sage was new to me, to have a big flowering sage. Is that change the herb or is that desired?
I would take the flower off. I think it's most herbs do flower at some point, but you should take them off. You can put the flower in a vase or something. It's not that it's bad that it flowered, it's just natural, but I would take the flowers off so more effort goes into leaf production.
Perfect, thank you. It's the right timing. I'm shocked at the big bulbs.
Yes, I have flowers this year too on my sage.
Thank you.
Here's somebody is writing one great way to gain and share plants that I've enjoyed is to water propagate and then do plant swaps with neighbors. If you're on a budget, it's a fun way to grow your collection and explore new plants. And that was just written to me. I just want to say that's a great idea. Doing plant swaps with people is wonderful. I grow tomatoes every year, and tomatoes are really easy to grow from seed, but you have to start them in February or March. I remember when I took my master gardening class, the teacher said, a tomato seed can go through sewage treatment plant and still germinate. So it's just easier for me actually to grow 30 tomatoes, but I don't need that many, and then I give them away to people. So it's a great way to create mutuality and create community to share plants. So thank you. Can you eat the flowers of sage? Someone asked me. Sorry, I don't know the answer. I think you can. I think any herb that you can eat the flowers, but you might want to Google it to make sure. Has anyone gone to shop for buying fresh during this time of social distance? I'm not sure what that question means. Gone to shop for buying fresh. I don't know. Someone asked if they could keep their rosemary in the garage. You could try it. I had brought rosemary inside for the winter in a cool sunroom. It gets a lot of light and it's cool, and it got white mealy bugs at the end of the winter. And that does happen sometimes when you bring plants in, they get white bugs. For me, it's not worth the effort. I'd rather just buy a new plant. But if you feel like trying it, you can. How do you grow bay laurel indoors was another question. I would start it outdoors and keep it in a pot, and that's something you could try growing indoors. I also tried that, and it didn't work so well, again, indoors. But that's what people say to do with bay laurel. I'm trying to read some of these others. Let me see. My indoor herbs are not doing great. 2 pots of cilantro have died inside. Well, I heard someone say last year at an herb talk that it's all a ruse where all the stores try to sell you herbs to grow inside, that almost no herbs can grow inside because they don't get enough sun. And she said, so don't feel bad that you're failing. They're shouldn't be selling it. That has been my experience. I have never had luck growing herbs inside. Kudos to someone who does, but they need a lot of sun. So if I were you, I would try to find any space outside instead of inside, and do not feel bad that they died. The sunlight is so much more powerful than any indoor light that's why outdoors does a lot better. Okay, let me see. When certain herbs or greens flower, the taste of the leaves tend to taste bitter. Is this a generalization? Well, I think that might be true. That's why you want to take off the flowers. Certainly the chives, the stems that have the flowers are very tough, but afterwards they're fine. So I do think in general, for some things like violets, as the time goes on, that leaves get less fresh tasting. But I think I don't think it gets real bitter. I think the main takeaway is to take the flowers off. So I have I know I'm not getting all of these because there's so many, so I'm trying to get them. I have oregano and thyme in one window box and mint and rosemary in another. Are these okay together? Sure. I think you can put them together any way you want. Basil and cherry tomatoes in pots next to each other, great. At end of summer, can any of these be potted and brought inside for herbs over winter? Well, as I've said, I haven't had much luck bringing them inside. So I concentrate my efforts outside and save my basil and pesto, and put it in my freezer. But yeah, putting herbs together any way you want. Someone asked, are there shade-loving herbs? There's not shade-loving herbs, but there's 3 herbs that grow better in the shade that you could try. That's chives, parsley, and mint. They will not grow in heavy shade, but they will grow in part shade. Can you use Aerogarden for indoors? I don't know the answer to that. Never mind, you've answered my question. Okay. Where do I get a plant light, and are there any you recommend? I don't have a recommendation. I would say the internet. I do grow my tomatoes from seed just with window light, actually. Okay, when is a good time to start tomatoes in seeds in North Carolina? Definitely in the late winter. I would check with someone local about that, but it would be February or March. This is too late. They take a while. Transplanting perennial herbs from pots. When should we transplant in the fall to where we ultimately want them next year? I think what you can do is plant them. It's a good time generally for planting. Everyone knows about planting in the spring, but planting in the fall is good because there's less stress on plants because it's not going to be hot out. So September, October, before it's going to freeze, depending on where you live. But that's a great idea of a time to do it. I have lots of wild violet in my lawn in Maryland, so that must be a new person. Yeah, can I eat it? Yes, yes, yes. You can eat all the violet. There's only one kind of violet, I should say. You should not eat yellow violet. Yellow violet, they say, can give you a stomach upset. But most people are having violet. They have purple or white wild violet, and yes, you can eat the leaves. How do you control powdery mildew on bergamot? good question. I just read something that's kind of counterintuitive, that actually the best way to control it is to make sure it has enough moisture, um, which is counterintuitive because it's mildew, it's wet. Um, the other thing about these things like powdery mildew, I don't stress over them because it may look bad, but it doesn't kill the plant and it will come back fine next year since it's a perennial. So you could try making sure there's enough moisture. In general, I don't water my native plants because no one waters the prairies or the woods, and I try to make my life easy. So I don't water my bergamot. Um, but if you want to look better, you could try that. Lemon balm does grow in the shade. Oh, someone says that. Every year it pops up somewhere in my shade garden. Great. I don't really know that plant, so I don't know every plant, and thank you for sharing that. Okay, and someone said I freeze some, so this is just to me, I want to share it. It's a nice, I freeze all my herbs at the end of the season and use them for cooking all winter. So that's great. You can freeze some by wrapping them tightly in plastic wrap. Lovage would be that, or many others, and then putting them in the freezer bag. There's some like basil that will turn black if you do that. So basil is definitely one where you should put it in olive oil or make pesto. But if you don't want to make all pesto, at least chop it up like you would for like in a blender and make pesto. Like just basil and olive oil. Just curious, why wouldn't you want to eat too many marigold leaves? Because I'm doing a public webinar and I haven't thoroughly researched it. So, and I haven't done it myself. So I've read that you can eat them, but I would want to read a little bit more for more sources. I think I got the idea you could eat them because I think a restaurant in Mexico served them to me this winter. But I've never seen them anywhere else. So that's why. And you can dry herbs in the microwave, someone wrote. Yes, thank you. As I did say in the beginning, you could do an hour presentation about preserving herbs, and I was just trying to give some ideas. But thank you for sharing these. You can dry them in the oven, which I think you should Google how to do it. And you can dry them in the microwave. So there's different ways to preserve them like that too. Okay, I'm going to go back in the chat and see if there's other things that I feel like I missed, because I think there are. Let me see. Do critters like nasturtiums? I live in Morris County, deer, groundhogs, etc. So that was a private question to me. I bet you they don't. I have groundhogs too. I hate them. Since I don't color my hair, I put hair clippings around them. I also do windmills of mylar that you can buy like at CVS. I did that last year. It's not a scientific experiment because I did all these things. They won't eat things that are really spicy, like they won't eat mustard greens. So I think they probably won't eat the nasturtiums because they're the leaves are so spicy. Okay, let me see. I think I got it. Oh, there's someone who said they had basil, sage, and cilantro indoors, but they seemed pretty sad, so I brought them outside for some sun. They got worse. Any recommendations? You could try cutting them back. Cilantro goes to seed quickly. The sage might do the best. I think the best solution would be to take the sage out of that pot and put it in the ground and see how it does. You may have to start over with the basil and cilantro. Like I've said, I think it's harder to grow things indoors than the people who are selling us things make it out to be. Okay. Let me just click and see if there's anything new. Okay, great. Some people are saying thank you. That's nice. I appreciate it. Jose, are there any other questions that you think I missed?
No, I think everything is fine. A person was asking if you can propagate basil from seedling that you are getting in a store. And the answer is, I believe, no, because whatever you buy, that's what you're planting. You can't propagate them, but you can grow them by seed.
Yes, and I think that person may, sometimes the store sells basil with the roots on it because I think they're trying to preserve the basil longer. So that might be what they were asking. But I would not use that. I would buy basil from a garden store or basil that's outside a grocery store that's meant to be put in the ground. I would not try that. I think you'll be frustrated. And you can grow basil from seed, but it's a little late to start it now for this season. Oh, someone just said they've done that though about the propagating regular basil. Okay, well, more power to you. Um, can we start parsley from seeds? Well, this is something that I tried to do this year, is starting parsley from seeds, and they're very slow to germinate. They're just barely coming up, and I put them in about 3 weeks ago, and I read about it that they're very slow to germinate. So I think I'm going to buy some parsley plants. Like, none of these are that expensive, and let the seeds keep trying. But it was not easy like tomato seeds or basil. Basil definitely uh, germinated more easily. And someone shared that they bring their rosemary in for the winter. Great. That's if you have it in a pot, I would try that. At least try it and see. It didn't work for me, but it certainly can work. Um, and someone teaches us that parsley and cilantro are related. Have grown cilantro, a type of parsley, successfully. Slowboat cilantro seeds do well in this region. Fantastic. Thank you. I did not know that there was something called slowboat cilantro seeds. That's what you would want because otherwise they bolt, which means they flower and they go to seed, and picking off the flowers is not enough to stop them. So I think that is a great, a great, a great solution is to try to look for slowboat cilantro seed. And I have another question about bee balm, which I have answered. The only solution is to water it more for powdery mildew. I think, how much should one clip from the herb to regrow? Just leaf, leafless stalk. I did address this in the very beginning. Really don't be afraid. I wouldn't take more than a third of a plant, but that's an awful lot. So like with basil, when I'm going to make pesto, I will cut a lot of the stalk, maybe 2/3 of the stalk. There are times when I put my basil way too close together because I wanted to have so much to make pesto. And then it also got it got powdery mildew and a rust disease. So my theory on the herbs is don't wait to use them. Use what you want, but no more than a third at a time, which is a lot of the plant. That's a good rule for any pruning. Don't prune more than a third of the bush, for example. So it's a kind of easy rule to remember. That brings up something else I think is worth saying. It's good to give plants air circulation. I don't have a huge space, and I'm always trying to cram more in. And I've learned from better gardeners than I that it's better that less is more, and that maybe it's better. It could be better to give more air circulation to avoid the powdery mildew. That's another thing with bee balm too. You might try pulling out some of it so it has more air circulation. And that's really true with basil. I'm growing less basil now so that I have more air circulation. But definitely, especially with basil, have it and make it into pesto. And then someone else wrote about tips for cilantro. I said that they are tough to grow, but the no bolt is the best solution, I think. My rosemary bush is blooming. Cut off the flowers, the same for everything. And if they have flowers, I cut them off so that more energy goes into leaf production. How do you use a plant light? Someone's asking. My neighbors have them and I'm embarrassed. I would say ask them. It's okay. It builds community. I don't have a plant light and so I can't answer, but no one should be embarrassed. We're all learning. Okay, I think okay, someone said, when you snip your herb, this is a good question. Do you cut it all the way down to the bottom of the stem? So it depends. On chives, I do. On chives, I go all the way down. On almost everything else, but I don't take, I would take like 10, maybe, however I want, like take a bunch of stalks, like 10, all the way down. Most others I'm going to snip from the top and not go all the way down, but you could. But usually it's too much. I said with pesto, that's probably where the biggest thing, because I want a lot. Sometimes I'll use 6 cups of basil, make a big batch of pesto. So I'll go about a third of the way down the stem. I hope that's helpful. If you have a more specific question about a specific herb on that, I'm glad to answer that. Okay, I feel like I'm okay. I think I'm looking at some of the same questions. Okay. Jose, you think we're good?
Yes, we are good. I think at least if we have any other question from the audience, we are done.
I think I repeated some. I'm sorry about that because I got lost in the chat. There's quite a few. Yeah, I'm getting lost in the chat. So, someone said, "Is it too late to start now?" It's not too late, but start with plants. That's why we're doing it today. It's actually been a cold spring, so. Thank you all for joining us today, and enjoy your herbs. Share them with your family and friends, and happy growing and happy cooking. And don't forget to go to the Northeast Earth Coalition if you can and make a donation.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jose.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day.
everyone.
This was
I guess-
wonderful.
Stay tuned for another webinar.